Well, welcome to part 2. I am still here sitting with Jennifer Iannuzzi, and we are discussing beautiful Princess Sydney's diagnosis of the Smith-Magenis syndrome. And Jennifer, I want to thank you for remaining so we can continue this conversation, and thank you for once again sharing
Thank you for
that
having
picture
me.
with us, and for just like bringing us on the inside of what your family has been experiencing for these past 4.5 years. And I know it can't be easy for you nor your husband, but more so her 2 brothers.
Yes.
How are they coping with this?
They're doing fairly well. Early on, I didn't share the diagnosis with them. I think I needed time to make sense of it myself. It's very difficult to explain to young children that it's not something that's going to go away, that's not something that you can fix. And until I got comfortable with that myself, did I begin to share it with them. And the defining moment for me to really open up that their sister had anything other than just being Sydney and whatnot was I attended my first Smith-Magenis syndrome conference back, it's about a year ago now I went, and I met numerous families and had a chance to really see and understand what this syndrome was about and how it evolved over the years for children into young adults. And I spent a lot of time actually meeting adolescents and young adults with Smith-Magenis syndrome to get a real feel for what the course of events was going to be. You know, it's one thing when a physician or a teacher says your child has special needs. Well, what does that mean? You know, what does that really mean?
What's the end result?
What's the end result? And when I really got to see what it was, is that, you know, young adults with Smith-Magenis syndrome would carry on a conversation with you, would be funny and happy and endearing, but we're pretty much young at heart, is a nice way to say it. And, you know, had facial features and, you know, motor planning issues and needed a lot of supervision. And once I understood that, then I felt more comfortable coming home to my boys. And I still remember to this day, I came back from the conference and I said, you know, I know you boys know that I went to a conference to learn more about your sister, and now I have a name for it. And I came home and I said, it's called Smith-Magenis syndrome, and people with Smith-Magenis syndrome take longer to learn things, and I kept it really simple at first. And I definitely learned from experience that I was going to follow their lead. So I told them that, and then I let them ask questions and just basically got a sense of where they were at. And the biggest thing for them at this moment was, you know, well, will she be able to play with other kids, and will she be able to go to school, and you know, there were very concrete answers. So I figure we're going to learn about the diagnosis. We're going to learn about the diagnosis, obviously, but they're going to learn about the diagnosis at their own pace and what they can handle.
And innocent questions they were asking.
Very innocent.
You know, and not only were you able to verbalize it, but as you verbalize this disease for them, you had concrete pictures into your mind, because you're looking, well, honey, here's what you have to look forward. I was just at this conference in conversation with maybe an 18-year-old who is not a toddler like Sydney,
Right.
but is an adult.
Right.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful.
It helped me to help them. And not to say we don't have very difficult moments. Sydney can create a lot of chaos in the home. You know, there's a lot of tantrums, crying, meltdowns in public. It can be embarrassing for the boys. And one of the things that we have begun exploring is something called SIB shops. I don't know if you've ever heard
No,
of
never
that.
heard of that. Would you explain, please?
They're groups that you know, different organizations host them, or a Y might have them, and it's siblings of children with special needs.
Okay, it's like when you, like people that go to AA and
Yes.
then they have it for the family. How
Yes.
wonderful.
It is. I've
Beautiful.
spoke to both of them, and they're very interested in going, and I think they're ready. You know, I didn't.
Wonderful.
Everybody's at a different point with it.
Yes, yes.
But I knew that they were ready, because one of the other things I felt very strongly about and continue to do is, you know, I guess you call it a tragedy, a life-changing event. You know, having an individual
experience,
with
yeah.
special needs really changes your whole life.
Exactly. Every
And then
parent,
all
yes.
the players in your life change, you know.
Exactly.
And I needed to seek out, not only for myself, as I had mentioned earlier, a support network. I
Yes.
wanted to seek out other families who had siblings with special needs, so that my two sons could
And get their needs met.
met. Exactly.
And are there more support group for families to go as a complete component of the families together? That
Yeah, that's a
can
very
go?
interesting question. I haven't found
Not
that.
found that
I haven't
yet.
found that. The most I found is a group for my two boys to go to, and I was quite surprised that they showed an interest. Not surprised that they were unhappy enough to show an interest, but
No.
they would be willing
To learn
how
to cope, because that's
Exactly.
what they want, to help mommy and help daddy
Right.
and help Sydney.
Right.
We are in this together, and I think that's what their young hearts are saying.
Right.
This is not a mommy's responsibility or a daddy's.
Right.
It is
The whole
ours,
family.
because we are a unit. We are a family
Right.
unit.
And I think that, again, bringing back to, you know, the building this foundation, developing fundraisers, doing the website Strength for Sydney, I really felt that my boys, you know, got empowered from that.
Oh, yes.
And felt like
Oh,
we
yes.
were being proactive.
Exactly.
And it wasn't such an awful thing. You know, one of my sons said to me once, "Mommy, I don't like SMS, and it makes me sad." And I said, I definitely can understand that. I'm not going to minimize, you know, that it's hard. SMS is hard.
He's
And-
thinking
yeah,
about it.
He's thinking about it, and I said it is hard, and I know that it can be very difficult at times with Sydney, and when we're out at a soccer activity and mommy has to leave because Sydney cannot keep it together to stay there, and now daddy has to stay and mom can't watch. I know that that's hard for you.
And it's hard for him, I think, too. I don't know your son or anything, but what I'm feeling, I'm getting a sense that it makes him sad because he cannot do more for Sydney to
Yeah.
relieve what she's going through.
I do agree with that to some extent. I think it's
know?
very difficult, and you know, all your children have different personalities and
Of course, of
characteristics, and
course.
you know, one of mine is, you know, wants to make it better and
Yes.
forces his hand at making
Yes,
it better, and
yes.
that doesn't work. And the
Yeah.
other one is, you know, right where she's at, and
Yeah.
very empathetic and very sensitive, and has learned how to read her, and that brings me a lot of joy when I watch that. And
That's something
that
you
they're-
didn't
they're-
have to stipulate.
no, they've kind of come to that on their own. So I
wow.
do think it's a work in progress, and we definitely have our ups and downs, and I certainly have my ups and downs,
yes.
because it's a process
Oh, yes.
of coming
Oh,
to
yes.
terms
It's
with.
even a process with normal toddlers.
It is.
But
It
just
is.
to bring a severe diagnosis in play.
Into a family that
know.
wasn't expecting it
That's
and
right,
wasn't
that's right.
really set up.
That's right.
Nobody's set up for it. but
Exactly.
But I think that that's my boys, my husband, Sydney has made me feel like we need to move forward. We need to do something.
Will Sydney need to be homeschooled, or
You know,
there's
there are
special
some
classrooms?
families out there in the world, actually, that are homeschooled. And I do find myself fortunate enough at the moment, you know, I've learned now, one day at a time. I
One day
really
at a
have. I
time,
was not
yes.
that kind of person before that.
Yeah,
If
but
you
you-
met me
you have
before this,
evolved-
I have certainly evolved.
through this
One
as
day
well.
at a time. Right now, she does not need to be homeschooled.
Right.
Right now, I have a fantastic school
Beautiful.
program in place for her.
Wonderful,
I work
wonderful.
very hard at trying to keep that,
Yes.
you know, an advocate for her and keep it together. I don't know what the future will bring,
Holds,
but
yes.
for now,
And that's maybe part of what will evolve out of the work that we're going to be
Exactly.
going into. Are there therapists that specialize in offering therapy for families? Or you didn't identify that yet?
for Smith-Magenis syndrome or for special needs?
For Smith-Magenis
No,
syndrome?
there are no Smith. There are two women that work in a program down in Pennsylvania that have spent the better part of 2 decades working with special needs individuals in general, but have also worked a lot with Smith-Magenis
Oh, good.
individuals. They're wonderful women who I've been in contact with quite a bit, who will be coming up to our school district to do an in-service training
Beautiful.
about that.
Beautiful.
But other than those two women, there really is, in terms of therapists, you know, obviously there's Ann Smith, who of Smith-Magenis, she's a geneticist, and Ellen Magenis, that's how they got
Okay.
the name Smith-Magenis. These are two individuals who located the deletion, the microdeletion.
Interesting.
And I've met
Good,
Ann
because
Smith.
I was going to ask that
Yes.
question about how did it get its name.
It got that's how it's got its name, quite frankly. Ann Smith, Dr. Ann Smith, and Dr. Ellen Magenis discovered the microdeletion, hence the name Smith-Magenis syndrome. Ann Smith is a lovely woman who has really dedicated her life to working with these children and families. And she's traveled all over the world to meet and introduce herself, has attended multiple conferences, and she helps begin the PRISMS organization, which PRISMS stands for Parents and Researchers Interested in Smith-Magenis Syndrome.
Okay.
And not to say that they haven't done a wonderful job, but in lines with my forward-moving momentum,
Yes.
I did feel, along with my co-founder, Missy Longman, that it was time to move to the next step.
Yeah,
Which-
and I wanted to speak with you briefly about Missy and
Yes.
how that relationship evolved. She's in Florida.
She's in Florida.
And how did you get into this stimulating
I remember
conversation?
calling her one day. It's amazing that I have vivid memories of it from my car, you know, parked in the street. I got her number from Prisms, that they gave me several people's numbers, and I called her. And she was ready to have her second child, you know, within days of me calling her for the first time. And there was something about our first phone call that there was an instant connection. At the time, her daughter was 18 months old, Sienna, who was the little girl with Smith-Magenis syndrome. And there was something about Missy that I just sort of knew that we would be chatting again. Clearly, she took a hiatus from our conversations. She had her
Little
son,
child, yeah.
who's fine and beautiful little boy. And but then we would periodically speak again and again, and days would turn into weeks and months, and we connected over email and talking about our struggles, and learned that we really shared a very similar life. And it's interesting how circumstance brought us together. And, you know, even without Smith-Magenis syndrome as the draw, I
Right.
think we have a lot in common, and
Isn't that
there was a
something?
nice bond there,
Yes,
which
yes.
really turned into more than just a friend, like a soulmate, you know,
Yes,
someone
yes.
that we're in it together.
That's right.
And we would go back and forth for many conversations how that we need more research. There needs to be more research. I can't just accept the limited resources out there or the limited answers to questions. And we would, you know, research on our own what things were being done. And we would continually come back around to the same studies that were done 10 years ago or that were republished. And, you know, I think PRISMS has done a wonderful job, but more needs to be done. I don't want to discount their efforts. They brought us together. They brought
That's right.
many families together. But it's hard to do it all. It's hard to bring families together
Exactly.
and invest 100% into research. So I think Missy and I felt that we would take, a lot of families have done personal fundraisers.
Oh, yes.
But I think we both felt that we wanted to focus strictly on research.
I have a past student who is a founder of FAB, and that organization is for family of FAB, of people with friends of people with autism.
Oh, yes.
Right, and it's the same thing she's going through with, she has a grand plan of what she's looking to do with the organization, and funds is always getting in the way.
Yes.
However, she's not letting that stop her. She's still going out there, forging ahead
Right.
to get what she needs done. And it's
yeah.
the same thing that I see here.
That's what our hope is. We are been speaking and hoping to gather researchers that are interested. But the biggest thing right now, truthfully, is funding the Smith Magenis Research Foundation. We need to have enough funds to offer someone a grant
to
you
go
know,
out there
to go out and get
because,
started.
you know, if you get enough funds in the kitty, you
Exactly.
can fund somebody to go in to study to become a researcher
Right.
that's going to things. So let's talk about the foundation and some of the aspirations that you have for that, long-range goals.
Our real long-range goal, well, short-term, quite frankly, is to fund it and to build it. And I think that's what Missy's been doing down in Florida with her events, what I'm doing up around here with my events, spreading the word, the opportunity you're giving me at the moment to get it out there about Smith Magenis as well as the foundation. I mean, that's really a short-term goal. As much awareness and, you know, we're here and we want to be heard and we want to be taken seriously.
That's right.
And then, you know, after that is really to get a grant out there and a researcher interested in doing some meaningful research, even if it means 5-10 years, something that
so
could
long it's
better
not.
the quality of life for these individuals.
yes,
I understand that it is not something you can cure, you know.
No, but you can make it more
livable.
You know, with
I would
both
love to
the
make Sydney,
patient
you know, as
and-
simple as this sounds, more comfortable in her own skin.
That's
It's
right.
very
Enjoy her
difficult.
life.
Enjoy her life. It's very difficult to live with erratic mood swings, with explosive tantrums. It's debilitating, and she is not in control of them. It is due to this missing RAI1 protein. And my goal is to get a researcher to really focus on the function of the RAI1 protein and whether you can compensate for it somehow.
Exactly, yes. Can you
or
replenish
replicate
what's
it,
missing or what
or,
happened?
or something. You know, I'm not a researcher. I can't really speak to all of that, but that's our long-term goal.
Right.
And, you know, ideally, you know, in a perfect world, to have enough money to fund lots of different projects. But in the short term, like I said, to just get us on the map. You know,
yes,
I feel like if we can get a researcher up and running and who can provide us with, you know, progress of what she's working on, that might start a movement. That might get people more interested that this is a hopeful diagnosis.
Exactly, because you're speaking about identifying people globally whose
Right.
families going through this.
Right.
So regardless of where you are, you can pull together.
Well, that's-
and together people can build
Because
and
when you think
pool
about
the monies.
Down syndrome, you know, that's been around for 50,
decades.
60 years, you know, and I've given that a lot of thought. It's like, not to say that's better or worse, that's not my point, but my point is that when families get that diagnosis, there is a wealth of information
Yes.
to go to,
Yeah.
and a real supportive, familiar
Familiarity.
place.
Yeah,
and
and-
same with autism, you know. And that just does not exist yet for
Yeah,
Smith
and
Magenis.
then the question, Jennifer, becomes how many years of research has been vested
Right.
in Down syndrome?
Right.
And I think that's why what Missy and yourself are now doing is so important, because you are at the beginning
Right.
of what needs to be created.
Exactly.
So 25 years, 30 years down the road, somebody will be sitting on somebody's show and saying thanks to Missy
Right.
and Jennifer
Right.
for doing that. So long as we press in, perseverance
Oh, absolutely.
is the most important thing here.
Yeah, I agree.
Regardless of what it looks like,
Right.
we got to perceive and press in and stick to it
And stick to it. I
until
completely
we
agree.
get the result that we need, even when we don't see any.
Right.
But you just know
Right.
This is something I got to do.
And
the
that's how I
money
felt.
is going to come to do this because
Right.
the more the word get out there,
Mm-hmm.
and people start in their communities,
Right.
somebody will start an awareness.
Exactly. Well, that's what we're doing here today. That's the
Exactly.
opportunity. You, Leslie, connecting me to you has done that, and that I have to say has been one of the most amazing things on this journey. Is in a very short time, I've met some fascinating, wonderful people who have been so willing to help, and I never would have had that experience
Yes,
before.
and I look forward because I do a lot of work with the Commission on Children. So oftentimes I'm at the Capitol for these different bills that has to do with different things.
Right.
And I can visualize seeing you there, presenting.
That would be wonderful.
presenting your cause
Right.
to the state of Connecticut, which can then roll over to a Massachusetts, a Rhode
Right.
Island, a New Jersey, a New York.
Right.
It's just awareness that needs to go there. And somebody
Right.
saying, what they're saying makes sense.
Right. Right.
What they are saying make
That would
a
be
lot,
Yeah, I
a
agree.
lot of sense.
But you just have to get your message out there.
Yes. I am not sure how much time we do have, but I want to ask you to interject right here and give the information, the contact information.
Oh, okay.
And how people can read up more about your organization, and we want to talk a bit more. Just found out we have 7 minutes, so we
Okay.
still have a little more, but I want you to still go ahead
Okay.
and
Well,
give that,
right
please.
now, Missy and I are in the process of building the Smith Magenis Research Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The website is under construction. In the meantime, in order to access any information about our efforts, we both have our individual websites. Mine is called www.strengthforsydney.org, and Missy's site is www.siennassteps.com. Both of those sites provide information about Smith-Magenis syndrome, what our mission is, what our goals are. We can also both be reached through those websites, and both of those sites at some point in the near future will be linked to the Smith-Magenis Research Foundation. That foundation site will once again host inform people about what our mission is. It will also list the current research that we're hopefully funding. It will serve as an access for researchers to look for grants. It will explain in detail what Smith-Magenis is all about, and hopefully we'll get other people interested in getting involved in fundraisers themselves to help fund the organization. That's our hope, but it's all in process of
Yeah.
progress. Yes.
And I know you're taking it one day at a time.
Yes.
I don't know whether or not you realize that there's going to be a platform that's going to be opened up that you probably will have to be going nationally and even internationally to
That would be
present
wonderful.
and that. So
If we ever get
right
that
now,
opportunity.
do you get help with Sydney at home, or you're her sole caretaker outside of your family?
I do have help. I do have help. I'm fortunate enough to have some help come in, and I'm fortunate enough for her to have a very comprehensive school program.
Good.
So we do have help, which,
Good.
I did mention, I don't remember, I was on my website or in one of the articles that, one of the reasons why I sort of went ahead with this is, with my experience as a social worker, one of the things I learned is those families that I helped, their child's special need was not their biggest problem. They had multiple problems going
It's
on.
like the onion. You start to
It
peel
was.
the onion back.
Right. And, I do consider myself quite lucky and very fortunate. I know that to some that might sound strange. I have a daughter with profound special needs, but that is my biggest problem.
Yes.
And I'm very aware of that. And because of that, it puts me in a very unique position to be able to do what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And I feel like I have a
Give hopes.
purpose.
And to give hope
And to give hope.
to other families,
Right.
because there are
And
other
not
families.
just other families with Smith-Magenis syndrome. I mean, I think that's where the whole title Strength for Sydney from my website came from, is that, it takes strength to persevere.
That's right.
And anyone with a special need or something they didn't expect to happen in their life. You have to find an inner strength.
That's right.
To
Helps you
kind
harness.
of to get through, and not to sound corny, but to find a new day.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Every
Exactly,
day is
I
a
know.
new day, and it gives you hope that you're gonna make it.
And from the day your mom gave birth to you, the father knew that there was going a time when the social work training,
Right.
that
was all gonna come
that
together.
job with those special needs
Yeah.
children was going to come together
Right.
in one punch.
It did.
You know, or a salad or something.
Yeah.
It was all blended together when you'd have to pull on those resources
Yes.
to help to build up on the strength that you need
Needed to do
to
what I
help
did,
others,
yeah.
because not everyone could have dealt with this in this calm, relaxed, informed way
Right.
that you are dealing with it. And now you are sitting not only in the seat of a parent with a child with special need, but you see yourself as the leader who has now evolved
Right.
to help others connect and to empower themselves and to get the strength that you found.
Right. That's what I would like to help people do that. Yes. That would give me joy to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yes, so if I'd ask you to give just 2 points to the families who are home, who we are going to use the big label of having someone in your family with special needs, if you would give them 2 statements of hope to hold on to, what would those statements be? Just look right in this camera and tell them, please.
Well, first, to know that they're absolutely not alone, that there's many families out there living with special needs. And my advice to you all would be to connect and connect and connect as much as you can to other people who share your struggles and your hardships, because I've learned from my own experience that it is so much better to do it with someone than to do it alone. And also to advocate. Just advocate to what your child needs, to really educate your school systems on what your child's disability is. And with that, there's hope for a brighter future for them.
Yes, yes. Jennifer,
Thank
I
you so
want
much.
to thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for this enlightening conversation. I want you to know that there's a platform here for you to utilize to help to empower
Thank you very
others,
much.
because we need to learn about what we are surrounded by, whether or not we ourselves are being affected, but as a community, we need to have an awareness
Right.
about us, about the things that we
Absolutely.
are going to encounter. So I want to let you know that feel free, call me up anytime.
Thank
Come
you.
back here and I'll help you to get your word out. And
Thank you.
you for joining us again. And as always, I see it as a plump, pleasing pleasure because you viewed with me.
Thank you.